But there's more to do. And with regard to age, I can't even say, I guess, how old I am. I can't even say the number. It doesn't register with me. And but the only thing I can say is that one of the things that people are going to find out is they're going to see a race, and they're going to judge whether or not I have it or don't have it.
Oh, we're watching it. That's President Biden on Wednesday, following his announcement that he and Vice President Kamala Harris will be seeking a second term in 2024. If Biden does win re-election next year, he will leave the Oval Office in 2027 at the age of 86 years old. It comes as a new Fox News poll shows the president receiving negative marks across the board from voters on immigration, on China, and on the economy. The president's re-election announcement also coming just one day after Susan Rice decided to depart the White House. Is it a coincidence that the former head of domestic policy, Susan Rice, leaves the administration right before Biden makes such an important announcement? Joining me right now with more is former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. And Newt, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be with you.
I want to talk to you about...
I actually thought...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I actually thought the most amazing video of the week for Biden was when he could not remember that he had been in Ireland.
Right. Yeah.
And that he's stumbling around. Oh, where was it that I was at? I mean, he seems to be steadily getting more forgetful, and that's a pretty weak base on which to run for president.
Yeah, we're all watching it. It's not just the age. The number is not what's important. It's his mental capacity, and we are all watching it decline every single day. Newt, I want to get your take on Antony Blinken as well in a second, but do you believe that Susan Rice leaves the White House the day before Biden makes this announcement is a coincidence? I mean, I feel that this is very significant. I don't know if she's going to be managing somebody else's campaign, if she's going to run to challenge Biden. What do you think's going on here? But clearly, Democrats are divided over Biden's re-election bid.
Well, I think at a minimum, it probably is a sign that she said, don't do it. And he said, I'm doing it anyway. And I think she just didn't want to be part of a Biden reelection. And I also think that I was very struck when Mark Halperin in his Wide World of News ran the video of Michelle Obama on stage with Bruce Springsteen. She's playing a tambourine. She recently had 9,000 people at an event with Oprah in Los Angeles. I think Republicans had better pay significant attention to Michelle Obama. I hadn't believed that until I saw her on stage with Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, this is not a person who's hiding. So it's conceivable that Susan Rice and others are beginning to say they're not going to be part of some kamikaze re-election campaign with a guy who can't remember what he did yesterday.
Yeah, I saw the video as well on Twitter, and apparently they're traveling with Steven Spielberg and his wife, and yes, she got up on stage again, sparking my questions about Susan Rice stepping down. I want to take a break, but when we come back, I've got to get your take on Antony Blinken. He was running the Penn Biden Center, and then I want to get your take on the debt deal in the House of Representatives. Stay with us. We're with Newt Gingrich this morning. We'll be back. Welcome back. I'm back with former House Speaker and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. Newt, you saw the show earlier when Senator Ron Johnson just broke news, told us that Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, lied to the Senate under oath regarding Hunter Biden. Your reaction?
Well, look, I think it's pretty straightforward. Anthony Blinken has been at the Penn Biden Center, which was at least indirectly or directly funded by the Chinese Communists. He's paid a very substantial salary. I've heard it was $1 million to be the director. He clearly lied directly to the U.S. Senate. I have no idea what motivates him, but if you look at how pro-Chinese the Biden administration has been, whether deliberately or out of incompetence, and I suspect it's deliberately, he has to be part of sort of the Biden criminal clique. I mean, all these guys do things, and in his case, he clearly broke the law. I mean, if you told the Senate, no, I never communicated with Hunter Biden, and then it turns out not only did you communicate, but using your wife as a cutout, she was communicating. This is such blatant dishonesty that it's staggering. And I don't know of any American presidency that rivals the Biden presidency for just sheer corruption and dishonesty. And I think at some point the country's going to respond to that.
Well, the House Republicans have been doing their best to try to investigate and get to the bottom of these things. They're having victories. They even had victories on policy with Kevin McCarthy's debt deal last week. What do they need to do?
Well, look, I think they're doing exactly the right things. And, you know, Speaker McCarthy, I think, is dramatically underestimated. Think about this. In 1 week, he brought MIT experts down on a bipartisan House and Democrat and Republican briefing on artificial intelligence. He hosted the president of South Korea for a joint session. He then passed the debt ceiling. The only debt ceiling bill that has passed is the McCarthy bill, which actually has $4.1 trillion in cuts and is the first significant step towards avoiding default. And then he left to become the first speaker in 25 years to address the Knesset in Israel on the 75th anniversary of the founding of Israel. So that's just 1 week in the life of Speaker McCarthy. And in the process, and by the way, his congressional delegation includes a number of Democrats. So he's working very hard to build a bipartisan momentum in the direction of real reform.
Yeah.
And now I think it's going to be up to the Senate and Biden to respond to the reality.
And he follows you, being the first speaker to do so. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, great to see you. Thank you, sir.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.